Hello, hello.
Hello. Do you know how to do the sun dance? Okay, it's time to do it now. Okay, so I'm very grateful to be the moderator today. Do you know the name of the panel? Seen, heard, and hired. And before we start, I'd like these 4 beautiful women to introduce themselves. Is that okay? Amber, you want to start?
I would love to start.
Okay.
Hi, everybody.
Go ahead.
I'm Amber Browne. I am the VP of Client Development for the Trade Desk, so I oversee our EMEA-based global partners, our global client teams. I've been with Trade Desk for about 11 years. I'm also a relatively new mom. I've got an 8-month-old girl at home. Thank you so much. Missing her tremendously. But also very, very happy and honored to be here. And yeah, thank you so much.
Melanie?
Hi, I'm Melanie. I lead the global retail media practice at Criteo. I just joined Criteo in January. Prior to that, I was for 10 years at Macy's, a department store in the United States. As you can hear in my accent, I'm originally from Germany. So 13 years ago, I moved to the States. Prior to that, I grew up, studied, and worked in Germany. I'm the mom of a 6-year-old daughter and the wife to the most wonderful husband who is with my daughter right now.
Yeah. Ornella?
Hello, I'm Ornella, the Chief People Officer of Dailymotion, a social media platform, a French one. It's pretty rare, but that's the case for today. I used to work for different digital companies and the Printemps, that you may know, that it's a French retail store too. And I used to work for Jealous Mac, a creator company, pretty normally famous in the US. Mom of 2 kids, 3 years old and 6 years old, and glad to be here for sure as a Chief People Officer. That's for sure a very important topic for me.
And Simone.
Hi everyone, I'm Simone. I'm Head of Partnerships at Brixton Finishing School. Before I joined, I spent over 10 years in the industry working across various agencies. I'm also a mother. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
It's my daughter's birthday today. She is 2. Yeah, very sad to be missing it, but also very grateful to be here as well. So lovely to see you all.
Lovely. Thanks to be here. So I'm Mykim. I'm actually a strat advisor, board member of Equativ. I'm a mum of 2. My boy is 25 and my daughter, she's 23. And I've been in the business for more than 30 years. So I might be the senior one here. Just a little intro before we start. And please, we want to make it very interactive. So actually, if you have any question or comment, raise your hand. We'll pass you a mic. And we would like to speak from our heart, not from our head, if it's possible. And we'll make the conversation private, like we are the 5 of us on stage and just having a private conversation. A couple of numbers before we start. In 2021, of businesses that employ gender equality practices, 73% reported increased profitability and productivity. That's a nice way to start the panel. Promoting the inclusion of women in tech, data, digital is an imperative for the future of industry. This is what I'm deeply convinced that the future of our companies depend on a large extent to our ability to promote inclusion, and in particular the inclusion of women in technology and data sector. Another number, and then we shall start. According to GenderScan study from early 2023, the proportion of women in tech jobs in Europe has not increased and remain below 20%. This proportion fall further down for a position of responsibility. What the hell are we doing? Okay, so let's just start with the first question, which will be the main challenge that women may often encounter in their job. And maybe, Simone, you want to start with this one?
Oh, okay. I'd say when it comes to sort of challenge entering the industry, I think it really starts from in school. So we're thinking about things like educational biases, societal biases, and and yeah, really sort of breaking these down. So when you think about the word female as well, it's very broad, and we need to sort of look at it from intersectionality point of view. Sorry, I've realised I'm not holding my mic. And really understanding the challenges and the barriers that each individual woman face. And so when we go back to schools, it's, raising awareness. It's encouraging young females to go for STEM subjects. Understanding that actually things like STEM subjects, you have many transferable skills that allow you to break into these industries. At Brixton Finishing School, we have a schools outreach program called Adventure, and it's really about breaking down that awareness barriers of going into schools and really sort of encouraging young women and men to go and explore the tech, advertising, media, marketing industries. There's a lot of work to be done, I think, especially those from marginalised groups, in educating parents about the benefits of going into these industries, and that they can actually be very profitable. I know, I was encouraged to go maybe a doctor or a teacher or, the really sort of traditional things that our parents were told when they were younger. So it's educating the parents, but also starting at school. I think that's the first place to start.
Well, Melanie, you're talking about the imposter syndrome and some challenges you faced as well.
Yeah, I think it's really important to lean into what you really want to pursue and feel ready for. And so I think that in reflecting on my own career, but also what I've seen with other women, we sometimes wait until we feel like we're checking every box. But there's so much to learn for every one of us in any role, right? Like, it's a continuous journey, and sometimes taking the leap and being out of your comfort zone is a really healthy place to be. And so I hope to inspire and mentor many women to be courageous in taking steps forward. In my past role leading Macy's Media Network, for example, there have been a number of coaching situations where I gave encouragement and showed potential career paths to female members of my teams who weren't raising their hand, but I saw potential. And so I gave them just a little bit of a nudge of encouragement, and they were like, oh my God, that's so amazing. And so I think that we need to support each other and give each other these words of encouragement to help women be courageous, taking the next step before they think they're fully ready. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Ornella, maybe you want to add up, as a chief people officer, the main challenges you're facing in your company.
I'm not going to say that for me as a woman, but more as a chief people officer that is a witness every day of potential kind of symptoms like the imposter symptoms. And it's really weird to have, to justify and give arguments to women at work about, yes, you can do it. Yes, you have the ability to do it. Every day, it's clearly my role to push people and to push women, for sure, to believe in the fact that no, there is no limit for your evolution. And yes, that's clear that, as an HR person, it's still, unfortunately, the case. So we have a lot of things to do.
Yeah. Amber, you're talking from a TTD perspective that actually is quite balanced in your organization, though you're seeing things around minority communities. You want to explain a little bit about that?
Sure. So I think as a whole, and first of all, it's a wonderful industry. I have been in it for a long time. I love this industry. There's so much exciting things that are happening all the time. I've been with the same company for 11 years, and I learn something new every single day. I'm challenged every single day, and that's fantastic. It's such a cool space to be in. And as far as just the water's warm, come join, right? And as a whole, if I look at it from a global lens, and granted, there are some countries that are less balanced than others, but on the whole, the trade desk is very well balanced as it relates to males and females. But it would be disingenuous for us to have this conversation without talking about intersectionality, without talking about the various groups that fit within the female definition, as Simone rightly pointed out. So where we do see bigger gaps is with minority communities, and where we need to do a lot more to actually create programs that help incentivize it. Because, and again, our partnership with Brixton Finishing School has been phenomenal in doing that. And we've got a wonderful internship program with them. We've been able to hire 4 graduates from Brixton Finishing School, which we're very excited about. But there's a reason why programs like that exist, because it's really important that we're creating opportunity, giving access, educating people on what this space is and what that looks like, and changing some of the makeup. Because the other side of it is making sure that this is an industry that's attractive to everyone, right? Like, in the same way that if I went to an interview with a new company and I was only interviewing with male panelists, I would have some concerns. I would be scratching my head and wondering, is this space for me, right? And so we need to change the makeup of our organization to look more like our neighborhoods, right? Like, that's what I want. I want it to look like the world around us. That's what
I agree. I think it's so important, to your point, that we need to be very intentional as organizations around it. I'm very excited to see programs such as Women in Tech Sponsorship at Criteo, since we see an opportunity to increase female participation and representation, particularly in more tech-oriented functions. When you look at Criteo at large, 41% of employees are female, and you see a lot of female role models. Our chief CEO, our chief finance officer, and chief human resources officer are female. But if you look into the tech functions within Criteo, we have an opportunity to grow participation, and we are very intentional providing those opportunities through the Women in Tech Sponsorship program. And so I think that every organization should be really intentional about, like, where are those opportunities and how do we nourish the talent there.
Yeah, sure. Let's go a little bit personal, if you want, if you agree, to share something that happened to you, like, you know, your personal experience around this issue that women may face and how you overcome these difficulties. You want to start?
You're looking at me. I'll take it. I'll take this
Yes,
one. So there's two topics that come to mind here, and one is very, very recent, and so it's one that I'm quite passionate about. I mentioned Cleo, my 8-month-old daughter, and I think that one thing that is a big topic we as a collective group should be continuing to talk about is discrepancies in parental leave policies, especially in Europe, where they're much, much longer. But in general, like, more often than not, the trade desk, for example, we've got maternity leave is anywhere from 4 months if you're in the US to a year if you're, or in Germany it's also based on local laws, etc. However, the male parental leave, and I'll give the US, is 2 months, right? And even within that, a lot of times the men will say, I'm going to take the first 2 weeks, and then I'm going to come back to work, and then I'll take the rest of it at a different time and extend that. And it affects you on a personal and professional level, right? Because I understand we shouldn't be asking men to make the choice between spending time with their children when they're more fully formed humans and they can interact with you, and it's a lot more fun when the babies are a little bit older, right? But at the same time, that I could not fathom what it would have been like to have been on my own after 2 weeks. Like, I'm very, very lucky that my husband is full-time dad, an incredible supportive partner, amazing dad, but he was also there with me throughout the entire thing. And the biggest thing that I came out of it thinking is, like, this should be the case all of the time and for everyone. The other side of it is, like, as much as we all do to encourage and support family leave, it's really impossible to say that there's not a difference that happens when you're gone for a really extended period of time. Like, I've come back and I am chasing a bullet train, and it's very difficult to advance while you're also playing catch up, right? And so finding a space where those look a lot more equal. And I know it came up this morning, Publicis Group, like, equal leave for both parties. Like, that's phenomenal, and especially if they actually take it. Right? But being able to create a scenario where that doesn't have an outsized impact at work and at home. The other big topic I think it's worth raising and having a conversation about is just in this era of Me Too, where I've seen a tremendous amount of positive change over the last several years, just in terms of, like, what we'll tolerate, what is being tolerated across the board. That's changed significantly on an individual, like, industry and organization level, but where I think there's challenges that still exist is within client relationships. There is a power dynamic that still exists that's really challenging to overcome at times. I had an instance where a woman on my team worked so hard to build relationships and to really get in with this client that we didn't have access to before. Very, very senior guy at the client. They got to a point where they're on a texting basis, which is like, check the box. You've done an incredible job in getting to the point where he trusts you that much. You're a partner to him. And very shortly after that, she started getting text messages about her appearance and what she looks like. And that's such an impossible situation to be in, right? Because what do you say? How do you react to that? And by the way, what we did do is just give her all of the room and the space in the world to choose her destiny in that regard. Like, you do not ever need to talk to this person again. Like, I will own that relationship. You're happy to continue to run here. If you want to be off the account entirely, you can do that too. I'm happy to call this client up and have a conversation directly about it. Like, it doesn't matter what that does to the business. Like, we were as open as possible, but like, none of those answers are good. Like, none of those, for the woman who had to experience that, none of those answers are a good one. I have to choose between the worst of all. So like, if we can collectively have better conversations about that and how to address it and how to make sure it doesn't happen, I think that would be really wonderful to see.
Yeah, Simone, you were talking about the fact that it's maybe less gender than race. Did you face any issue with that regard?
Yeah, I mean, I know we're focusing more on gender here, but obviously when I talked about intersectionality, obviously race does come into it, and there have been experiences throughout my career where I would say things like seniority and race have played a part. So one example is I worked my arse off on this presentation for a client, and I thought I would be going in to do the presentation, but actually once it was done, my boss then came in and said, I'm going to do this presentation, and that was it. And at that time, I was a lot younger in my career, and I had no one to stand up for me, no one to speak to about it, and I just sort of sucked it up, and it just sort of, moved on. And then recently, there was an incident where a few years ago, where I attended with another colleague of mine who was my junior, 2 black women, and we went to a client meeting, and we were there with our senior boss, who is white, female, and we all thought we were going in to have this presentation together. We all, the senior person worked on the presentation. And whatever happened, we ended up being outside of the room, being told to leave the room. There wasn't enough space in the room. And I didn't really understand what was happening, because I was like, how is this still happening in sort of, 2024? And we were in a room and just had to wait there until the presentation was done. And to be fair, I think it was a blind spot. And I think, not that that's acceptable, I think it was a blind spot on her behalf. But the fact that she didn't even think about the impact of that on 2 black females being ushered out the room, and only the senior white female being there led to do the presentation to a room full of white people is a big issue. And the best thing that sort of came out of that was understanding that actually, our leader was an ally for us. She spoke up, she addressed it, and I think that's what you need more of. You need people that if you can't find your voice or you struggle, you've got someone there that can help you and do that for you.
Ornella, do you think in that sort of case, people should come and see you in that situation, and then you can resolve easily the problem, or that will be also a very strong challenge for you to overcome?
It's definitely a strong challenge, but it's necessary. Like, we definitely need to have like this kind of reports of this kind of events, because we need to educate after that. Like, sure, we have a lot of allies, and thank God it's something great to continue. It's not like just a work of HR. Absolutely not. Women and men and all genders on this kind of topics, and this is very important. We are not alone in this fight. But for the HR, yes, the first step is to talk and to report this kind of events or actions. That's so important.
That's so interesting, because I remember being in situations in the past, fortunately not too many, but some where I felt that this doesn't feel right, but I don't know how in the organization to address it. And this is like few years ago, but I basically, to give you back context into the experience, I am someone who gets very passionate and about topics and who's ready to fight. And fighting, of course, in a very factual manner. So there was a specific disagreement with my boss over a certain topic, and I presented a lot of facts and arguments. And he specifically wrote in an email, please take the emotion out.
Oh, God.
And I, in that moment, and I didn't like, am I okay to feel bad about the station or not? Like, I even second guessed myself, but truly how I felt is like, I am not emotional. I just gave you 10 reasons in an email. And I read the email over and over, like, am I emotional? Am I emotional? I'm not emotional. I just gave him 10 reasons you didn't agree with me, but like, this is, and I felt like, am I now just being put into a stereotype of being an emotional female? How would this situation have been perceived if this was men presenting lots of fact? Maybe we would have been perceived as assertive or whatever else. But so that didn't feel right. And in that moment, I ended up talking to someone from HR, but I almost felt guilty because I was like, well, I don't want to escalate. I don't want to be difficult. Like, maybe I just shouldn't feel the way I'm feeling. But it truly didn't sit right with me. And so I think that is a bit tricky too. Like, if you feel a certain way, like, how do you navigate? Do you go to HR? It feels so escalatory. But I also, since he was my boss, I was like, he's actually nice, and I'm sure he didn't mean to. And like, you know, like it's hard to figure out how to navigate it.
But you can have a conversation. Sorry, you couldn't have a conversation with him about that.
I didn't feel comfortable because then I was worried that I would make him feel uncomfortable and that it would like impact my relationship, working like my standing with him. And again, like I otherwise had a wonderful work experience with him. I just felt like that doesn't feel right. I wish I had the courage to take him to the side and say, like, listen, like, this is how I felt. Maybe you didn't mean to, but like, this is how I perceived the situation. But I didn't have the courage to speak up to him.
Yeah, or maybe it's not courage. It's actually, it was wiser not to speak immediately. Otherwise, you really felt like, I'm emotional and I want to tell you. But anyway, I think standing up front a difficult situation, that actually can happen in front of a woman or a man, because you have women who are really bossy and can make you very uncomfortable. So we are not just here against men saying hard stuff or harsh stuff, but female can be also really, really hard between themselves, right?
Absolutely. I think we're our biggest competitors, aren't we? Yeah, we're always. So I think it's also really important to create those sort of psychological safe spaces. So obviously there's HR, but a lot of people feel like they can't go and speak to HR, especially young people, especially, you know, it's their first job in the industry and they're like, am I going to lose my job if I, you know, speak about what has happened or what I've experienced or how I feel? So how do you create those spaces where it's not going to HR, but there's someone that is their voice for them? I think that's really important.
And you can do that, like, I mean, very easily. Like, you have, like, HR people, the HR teams for sure, but you can potentially find internal allies, like simple employees, whatever gender, and just be, like, kind of an ambassador of this kind of situation. To have, like, one person dedicated, like, to manage that was, like, a real impartiality sorry, in the event. So that's important with the support of HR. But you have to communicate previously about the fact that yes, you are neutral, yes, it's fine to talk, and yes, you have potentially a process to respect in order to keep it confidential, because that's the part of the questions. That's okay, I don't want, like, potentially that manager will be informed about what I'm gonna report, okay? Because I don't think it's serious, but I think it's the beginning of something that I want to treat internally, okay?
Sure.
So that's why, for me, the keys for the HR teams and potential managers or internal allies, it's to build a process, communicate about that, and prove that you are neutral and find solutions to that.
Yeah. If I go back to the research I was referring to at the very beginning of this panel, I was saying that the more female you have in your organization, the better the profit and the profitability of the company is going. Does it mean that we women have specific skills, and I think, Melanie, you have a very interesting point of view.
Yeah, like I actually, in preparation of the session, I reflected on that question. I was like, I don't feel comfortable with this question. There were some thoughts that came to my mind, like females are this, females are that, and I was like, but no, I don't. This doesn't feel right, because on the one hand we're fighting against stereotypes, and then we're trying to find some that suit us well. And so I was like, no, like I've actually reflecting on the men and women I've had the fortunate opportunity working with. They were all brilliant, and I much prefer to think about them as individuals and think about their strengths and opportunities and how to best support them than trying to fit them into boxes. So I think if we want to avoid boxes and stereotypes, then we also need to stick with that and think about the individuals and not just like lean into the stereotypes that just suit us well.
Do you agree with that, Amber?
Yes.
Easy. All right. Okay.
Yeah, I attended a panel this morning and they were talking about people's superpowers, and that's what you lean on. Yeah. So
That's
you
great.
know, what's your superpower? What's their superpower? And that's how you identify them, is through their superpowers, which I thought was really lovely.
Do you agree?
Yes, I have to. Honestly, it was like my first comment when I saw the questions. But the only thing, if I have to find like one adjective, it's definitely resilience. We are here with the rain and the conference, so yes, definitely we're so resilient.
Can I disagree with you?
Please, I love it.
Because I do think that we're bringing something different, and not different as something that we oppose, something that we complement. And I think some men are more with some sort of feminine quality, such as yin and yang. And they will be absolutely amazing to be people ambassador, to be close to people and understand what program we want to create for the company to do better. Where you can have actually women who are business focus driven on anything else. So I think yes, stereotypes, but also yes, I think most of the time when you give some sort of human responsibility to women within the business, and it means that you can be a chief revenue officer, that works as well, not just an HR person, then most of the time people goes first. And I've seen that across different regions. I work in the US, I work in Asia, I work in Europe. Most of the time, a woman will feel like, I think it's a little bit late. Maybe we should take that tomorrow. Don't you have kids to pick up? Where a man will not naturally think about that, because they won't say, sorry, I need to pick up my kids, because they are not, and I'm saying kids, if you don't have kids, well, you can have your gym, or you can have anything, your mother, your sister, whatever. You don't need to justify yourself. And I think this is the space that women need to give to men at home. Because if we don't give space to men at home, and you were saying that you have a fantastic man at home partner that can take care of your kids, you can't probably do that job. So we're bringing something different, and whatever is the difference. It can be a very masculine type of yang quality, or it can be a very feminine type of yin quality. Anyway, that was just my point of view. Sorry about that. Now, let's just go into a more concrete approach. Initiative, program within your organization that really reflect what we're trying to say today. I think you're doing great stuff. Amber or Ornella, do you want to start? Any program that you guys are leading in your organization?
As I mentioned earlier, we have a Women in Tech sponsorship program, and so I think it's important to be intentional about providing opportunities for coaching and mentorship and other support, particularly in professions that are perceived as being more masculine. So I'm very excited about that.
We have this kind, for sure, of potential internal sponsorship in our company, but one thing very important for me was to dedicated time for my employees for conferences about the beginning of the difference and stereotypes that we can develop, like naturally, unfortunately for now, in different companies about appropriating, repeating ordinary sexism, and for sure, unfortunately, harassment, moral harassment, sexual harassment. And for sure that in the US and in Europe, we have like mandatory trainings that we are providing, but it's not enough. Like just the legal perspective, that's not enough. We need like to find the roots of the problem. And sometimes it's not just speaking about sexual harassment. We need to talk about like the beginning of the potential difficulties and issues. So that's why we decided twice a year or more to launch internal conferences about this kind of roots of the beginning of the difference between genders and women and men. So that's the first initiative. The second one is not internally, it's externally. We have, as company, a role to play externally in order to find a way to push young women, I mean like in high schools, for example, to believe that the tech industry and the ad tech industry and roles connected to these industries are like your potential role in your potential career. So, for example, like this year, and the name of this event is Tech in Motion, and the idea for sure is to find a way to convince French companies, but not only tech company developed in France too, to go in high school, to present women role models and to talk about the roles. That's super important. So if Criteo wants to come with us, that's fine. I'm so glad to like welcome all the companies who want to do that like collectively. And it's a kind of a model externally with like a new like involvement internally in your company. That's the aim.
Simone, you're talking about that as well, right?
Yeah, so
Female
obviously-
leadership.
Absolutely. So I think it does always start from the top because that's what filters down. So you need to have a strong leader, male or female, and they need to sort of live and breathe the values that, you know, we want to sort of instill in the company. Because if they don't believe in it, then it's just not going to translate, and you're not going to have that inclusive sort of diverse culture that you're trying to create. But obviously you talked about programs, and obviously at Brixton Finishing School we have loads of programs. You touched on sort of going into schools. Obviously I talked about that earlier with our schools outreach program Adventure. We obviously have programs that we run for sort of 18+-year-olds. It isn't just geared towards females, but it is about sort of breaking down those barriers to get people into the industries. One other program that we do is called Visible Start, and we've just finished a cohort, and it's targeting women over 40 or midlife women who are they've had a career break and they want to get back into the industry. There's more focus on sort of more tech roles, digital roles. It's in partnership with WPP and Uninvisibility. And it's great because, you know, when you think and you take career breaks, I know it was hard for me coming back after 1 year. Sorry. I know it was hard for me, thank you, coming back after 1 year. So, you know, you think some women take a good few years out to look after their children or whatever it may be. And just having that confidence to believe that actually you do still know it. And, you know, your skills, your new skills that you've learned are your superpowers, and you can bring those into new roles. And actually that having organisations that accept midlife women coming into their organisations as well is really, really important.
Wonderful. Amber, you talk more about onboarding and mentorship. Can you just develop mentorship as well? Because I think you have a strong point of view on that.
Yeah, I think this is one where one of the things that I think that we've done really well over the years, and what is really important is, I think the framing of this question is like, what are we doing to retain employees? Like, what are we doing to make it a space that people want to be at? And our onboarding is I would say very good in general at the start, and it's not based on anything other than skill level. We'll pair folks with a mentor that's outside of their organization, so they have a resource and someone who can help them navigate the organization, someone they can go to that's not their manager on their direct team when they have questions and things to worry about, but also just like such a immersive and extensive amount of onboarding to get people up to speed, but that also just stems from a culture of being really, really generous with our time. And so when new people start, like there is always a rally around them of like, what can we do to make sure that you're successful? Do you want to spend an hour talking about this? We could just riff, ask questions. We can, like, there's so much to unpack in our industry. There's so much to understand. And so making sure that folks feel like they're really, really supported. And one of my favorite things that happens as a result of that, and where I was kind of going with this from the start, is that what I hear often, and 11 years later I still hear it, I felt it myself when I started, which is like, I want to pay this forward. I had such an amazing time when I came on board. I felt so welcomed. I felt so good that I can't wait for the next person to start where I can do the same thing for them. And that's perpetuated itself for years and years and years, and that's so exciting. Like that's really like the markings of a very special place.
I think, Melanie, you had a wonderful mentorship experience with the mentor that you...
Yeah, and I hope she watches this because I talk about her all the time, even though we're not so much in contact anymore. I worked with her about 10 years ago. She was so brutally honest, and I love that. She was courageous, really being herself, and I found that so impressive. She was very decisive, but she was also very vulnerable, and she was a great team builder. She really inspired me to be myself. I think for many years, I felt growing up, in order to be to have a career, you need to be almost like a bit masculine, right? Like really like formal almost. And so like she was so liberating in terms of encouraging me to be myself and also being outside of my comfort zone. I remember at one point challenging someone with authority with sharing my perspective and then getting some back channel feedback that I wasn't respecting authority. And I shared that experience with her, and she's like, if you weren't pushing the organization to get better, you'd be doing something wrong. And so I was like, okay, thank you. And so I think that it's just good, like, for someone to be there and like who has your back, who encourages you to also do mistakes. Oh yeah, that was also so incredible about her. I saw her in front of the entire leadership team at Macy's talk about like how she celebrates failure with her team and how they were not meeting plan right now, but they're learning so fast, and that every day they are failing, she's celebrating it. And she was not afraid standing in front of the CEO and the entire leadership team talking about that without any fear in her voice. And meanwhile, like, everyone else who typically presents in front of a CEO and all the leadership team is like super buttoned up and highlights all the things that are going so well. And I just can't tell you how many of those moments I had with her where it's like really soaking it all in. And so often today I'm thinking about like, how can I pay that forward? How can I encourage others and also be a role model to others? Because I think that's how we really learn. And so I hope she sees this, because I think of her all the time.
You will be able actually to send her the recording.
I'm going to do that.
Yeah. What's her name?
Vanessa.
Okay, Vanessa, hi. Ornella, what are the good quality of a mentor from your perspective? So if you have to, develop that program further, what will be the main quality? And should this mentor be a woman?
I prefer to say no, honestly, because as I said, I think it's super important to have like men included in this important fight for gender equity. Without men, it's impossible to imagine that we can have like a final goal all together. It's not like we don't have like to separate, gender and say, yeah, we are the better, we are the best, blah, blah, blah. We definitely need to do it collectively. And for the main quality, I have to say that humility is maybe the best one. Humility, not to be shy or not to assume what you are, but just, okay, I'm just here like to coach you, to give you like tips and be just with you to help you to become the new you. But humility, maybe it's like something important too.
Yeah, nice. And from your perspective, what could we do to have a woman in leadership role? What we could do better? Do we have to have quotas? Do we have... What shall we do?
Okay, so first thing, by convincing that it's just not just a thing about being human or your social role or responsibility as a company. It's a thing about performance. And we need to think and to keep that in our minds that, yes, the McKinsey report told it. 36% of performance increasing when you have like leadership with the gender equity. CQFD, we say in French. It means that it's proven. So if you want to convince people, okay, do you want to earn more money? Do you want to be more performant? Okay, work on gender equity, not just the social involvement. Convincing that for the performance and for the business development is important too. And I think we still need to be connected to the final goal at the end. Just with a human thing, it's great, it's important. We need to care, we need to be like involved in this. But think about the business too.
So no quota.
Maybe it's a solution, but it depends on your like how like your leadership will and phase it or not.
Do you know
if they
there
don't
is-
believe about that, it's not an option. Okay, you need to believe in it. Okay, but yes, in my company we have quotas. Okay.
Okay.
But I think it's for our company it's something positive because it's connected to bonuses. Okay, and sometimes yes, like I said, if it's connected to the business performance, everything is relevant and smart at the end.
Here
so
we go.
yes, potentially.
Here we go. So the bonus include the fact that we need to have a diverse board.
Yeah,
And
and a
it's-
diverse board increase revenue. The loop is done.
Amber, do you agree with that?
The specific question around quotas, or
Yeah, quotas, and I think we're struggling a little bit as women in this question of quotas. So
I will start with, I don't necessarily have a firm, like 100% yes, 100% no. I see there's value. I think if you look at the start of what the question was, I think this is another area where, again, it's really important that we're talking about intersectionality, because we need more women in leadership, but we need more diversity in leadership across the board. Race, ethnicity, gender, orientation, identity, like all of that. We need to have a much more diverse leadership team across everything, and so we should encourage all of it. I think that we should have programs and goals and initiatives that are designed to help make that happen. We have to be intentional. It's not something that just we're going to stumble into. It's an important thing that you need to make sure that we address, we identify, and we say, what are we doing to actually make a change? Some of this is within the recruiting process, right? It's like I have had plenty of times where I've seen all white panels. Like everyone that's come in for a position has been entirely all white or all male. And I've said, I need to see more candidates then. Like, this is not acceptable. We need to continue to see more candidates. Internally, it's like we have to find our rock stars. It doesn't matter if they're brand new into the organization. If we spot really amazing talent, we need to find it, we need to foster it, and make sure that they have mentors in place. They have people who are supporting them and championing them and getting more opportunity to advance in their career.
there is a law that forces 40% of women in the board right now, and the name of the law is Zimmermann. Mm-hmm. So it has been in France, I think, for a couple of years right now, and we have for a company that are listed at Paris Stock Exchange 50% of women in a board. So you say, wow, that's fantastic. The problem is that in this 50%, you actually find the same woman in all the board. So it's good to have quotas, but you have to be careful because, now I'm a board member, and I think a couple of weeks from there, I refuse a board. And the reason why is because I said, I'm not going to be complacent with you guys. So if you're just looking for a woman, that's not going to be me. Because before being a woman, I'm a professional. And I have to say what I have to say, and this is why I'm taking the responsibility of being a board member. Okay, goodbye. That's it. Right, so we're moving towards the end of this panel, and I hope this is interesting for you guys. Now, what piece of advice will you give to young women that are starting their career? Do you want to start? Because I think, you're working in this area very hard.
Yeah, I think there's something in finding your connections and your family, building your network. Like I say, when I started out in the industry, we didn't really have things like Brixton Finishing School. We didn't have things like MEFA. I don't know if you've heard of MEFA before. We didn't have things like Join Our Table. All of those things where it gives women, but also people from sort of diverse or socially mobile backgrounds, a way to communicate and connect with people from the industry, because I think sometimes it can feel really lonely. And so having those connections, I think, is super, super important. And, we touched on mentorship. I think you should have a mentor throughout your career. I got a mentor as soon as I got back from maternity. I have a few mentors. I have a coach as well. And I think sponsorship is really key. So we are, trying to fast track some of our alumni who are in the audience today. We've taken them out to Cannes. How often do young people get the experience to come to somewhere like this and be in these spaces is quite unheard of. And so I think allowing, young people to be in these spaces and to build networks and connections is key.
Amber.
No, I mean, I love it. I agree with everything you said. I think it's like your personal board of directors, right? And find those people who are the ones that you're going to go to for advice throughout your career. I think that's wildly important. Other things I would say, just own your personal development. Always at least know what you want to be working on next, right? You don't have to have your 15-year plan lined up. Early in my career, the main thing that I focused on was just surrounding myself with smart people. I jumped around quite a bit more earlier in my career, and I wasn't necessarily knowing exactly where I wanted to go, but I was surrounding myself with smart people, and opportunities happened as a result of that. And so it's just making sure that you're doing that. But on the development side of things, I will say, I've never, and this is quite American of me, I recognize that, but there's never a promotion that I've gotten that I haven't asked for specifically. And so that's an important thing that you need to be able to be comfortable with, is just advocating for yourself, knowing what you're worth, knowing what you're bringing to the organization, and knowing what, if you're looking for what's next in that particular progression in that career, know what you need to do, know what gaps you need to fill in, know what you need to be able to demonstrate, have active conversations with your manager about what that looks like and how you're progressing, get feedback. Feedback is the best thing that you could possibly get. Ask for it often, but really, really take ownership of what that looks like.
Melanie, you go a bit further and you say, go out of your comfort zone.
Do go out of your comfort zone, but also follow your heart and your passion, what makes you happy. Often when I interview candidates, I intentionally ask them, what makes you happy? Tell me about a day that you felt great about yourself at work. And then let's lean into those areas and think about how this potential position would align with what you want to pursue. Because so often we think about what's on your resume, what have I done, how does that position me for what I want to do next? But just start with, what do you want to do next? There are so many professions, and it's really about not just always thinking about in a linear manner what's next, but truly following your passions and interests. I started my career in consulting, which was a great learning opportunity. I went on to lead corporate strategy at Macy's, but I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I had this amazing opportunity to go into retail media and build a retail media network. I did not have background in media. And so it took the courage for me to say, but I want to do exactly that, because I had worked on the pitch for a retail media network, and I knew I had the bits and pieces, and I knew that I would hire a team that would have the other pieces that I didn't have. So I still remember the moment where I was I would like to have this job, and I was standing at the Macy's Herald Square Starbucks. And I was I want to do this. And I was I'm going to write a text message right now to the hiring manager. It's can we have a conversation? And that's how it started. And that's why I'm here now. So sometimes you don't have the resume that has all the different pieces that's listed in a job description, but you can at least have the exploratory conversations and follow and basically take paths that are not always linear. So have the courage and explore. Sometimes it will work out, sometimes it won't, but the journey is really interesting.
Yeah. Ornella, how do you encourage young women in your organization?
Honestly, I'm going to try to do a summary, but connected to the title of the session. So if you want to be heard, ask. If you want to be seen, talk. And if you want to be hired, be talented. So that's it for me.
Okay, thanks a lot. So, do you have anything else you would like to share today, and you didn't have the opportunity to share anything from your heart?
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Yes.
It's great to step out and reflect and being with such wonderful women. So thank you for the dialogue today.
And thank you for
Yeah,
everyone
thank you.
for being here and for coming. There's a lot to do and see this week, and so appreciate you coming and joining the conversation as well.
There you go. Yeah, thank you for coming. I don't have
thank you very
anything else to add.
Okay, so I have one more thing to share with you. It's just a wrap up. So for me, to attract more female talent to industry, one, creating a welcoming and inclusive environment to encourage gender diversity. Okay or not okay?
Okay.
Okay, cool. Two, attracting female talent by continuing and facing the importance of gender diversity in tech, because I believe in demystifying technology. Do you agree or not agree? Agree? Okay, you can disagree, huh? That's fine. Three, introduce inclusive recruitment practices. I think you said if you having interview only with men, you say, what the hell I'm doing here, and with whom I'm going to work, and is it possible for me to have my space here? So women attract women, I think.
Yes.
For this reason, during the recruitment progress, we need that woman. And as a conclusion, I would say promoting diversity and inclusion in tech sector, as in all business sector, is a societal imperative and a necessity for economic prosperity. Thanks a lot.
Can I
Sure.
to
Thank
the
you.
point of disagreeing?
Sorry,
I'm going to be slightly
Go.
controversial for
Go.
1 second. The one important factor to come in, the last thing that you said, just around like we need women to be part of all the hiring process, and I agree with you. The danger of that, and what we need to also look at, is what kind of additional labor are we asking women, people of color, to do to be representative when if there is actually not a plethora of women there or people of color there to be part of that process. Like, are we giving them another side job without actually recognizing for that? So like,
Yeah.
I think that's an important factor that we have to take
True.
into consideration as we're thinking about all of this.
Absolutely. It's like asking the only black person to be the D&I lead. Because you're black.
Precisely.
Yeah. So yeah, I 100% agree with that.
Thanks a lot. That was great. Thank you. I enjoy it.
Thank you so much.
Do you have any question in the audience? Or anything you would like to share with us? It's not necessarily a question. I think we're going to give you a mic so everybody can hear you. Oh, a mic that is working, or maybe we need to switch on the mic.
Women supporting women. Yeah, I just want to encourage everyone who's not yet a member to join the Women in Programmatic Network. The French team helped organize this panel, so I want to give props.
Yoo-hoo!
Where's
I didn't expect that. So yeah, thanks a lot for coming. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Thanks a lot for the great panelists. It was really interesting. I did enjoy everything that you said. And yeah, we might be controversial and don't agree, but we need to stand up and just go for it. Once you feel we can make it. And even though you mentioned that we don't think that we have 100% capabilities and everything that is really like into the job description, just go for it. And that's it.
Thank
Be
you.
brave.
I just have one thing to add, if that's okay.
Sure.
Just a question. Do we agree that there should be more men in this room? Because I was just looking around. And obviously it's great to see loads of females and us supporting each other, but actually to sort of drive change, we need to have more men in the room.
Thank you for the men who aren't here.
Yes, thank you.
I think it's a wrap.
Great. Well, thank you all. And we've actually moved the happy hour downstairs because of the weather. So please feel free to go downstairs and grab a drink and continue the conversation.